A lot of attention has been focused on you constantly referencing Christ is King.
And there is a substantial coterie of people, anti-Semites, people who hate Jewish people, who are using Christ the King as what the left would call a dog whistle. And they use it to spit at people. There are pictures of Nick Fuentes, who is a raving anti-Semite, shouting Christ the King in this kind of aggressive, pugilistic way to mean essentially Jews are screwed. That's basically what they're saying.
She said some things that to me were blatantly anti-Semitic. There was no disguising what she was saying.
Does it, without getting too semantic, or at the risk of getting too semantic, does it matter that the Jews are not Semites, or does this phrase anti-Semitism just means hatred for the Jewish people? They're Ashkenazi, they're Eastern European Jews.
If you say anything against Israel, it's anti-Semitism. This bill, they had a hard time defining it. They also can't define what a Jew is. Let me just go ahead and read some of this to you. It says, this act may be cited as the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act of 2023. It is the sense of Congress that Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. While such title does not cover discrimination based solely on religion, individuals who face discrimination based on actual or perceived shared ancestry or ethnic characteristics do not lose protection under such title for being members of a group that share a common religion. So they admit right there that while the such title does not cover discrimination based solely on religion, which is what being Jewish is a religion, that's what it is. Being Jewish is a religion, that's what it is.
Being Jewish is a religion, that's what it is.
She said some things that to me were blatantly anti-Semitic. There was no disguising what she was saying.
Anti-Semitism is the oldest hate in the world, and the hate that mutates.
We shouldn't even be using that word anymore because most Jews who practice the religion of Judaism or who are culturally Jewish, even if they don't practice the Jewish religion, but they're culturally Jewish, like many are culturally Christian. Many of us celebrate Christmas, but we're not Christian. That's cultural Christianity. It is what it is, right? They can't define it. They're putting all these rules on us. We shouldn't even allow them to use the term anti-Semitism. It's not real. Most of these Jews are not Semites.
The current definition of anti-Semitism today has to do with what the feelings are. The current definition of anti-Semitism today has to do with what the feelings are. The current definition of anti-Semitism today has to do with what the feelings are.
And then this year, a few months back, some statements that were blatantly anti-Semitic and putting out narratives that they're just wrong, false narratives, but some of the standard conspiratorial anti-Jewish theories that are out there. So a few days back, she went on another rant. I had only heard a clip that was about 1.5 minutes long, and then last night saw maybe 8 more minutes of it, which were even more shocking. But I want to play this for you. And remember, she has millions of online followers. She said a lot of good things, done a lot of good things over the years. She's recently now officially converted to Catholicism to join her husband. And we'll come to that a little later in the broadcast. But I want you to hear what she has to say. We had to bleep out a word or two. And then I'm going to tell you more of what she shared and why is so utterly, factually outlandish. I'm not talking about an opinion. I'm talking about factually outlandish. Oh, okay. Aaron Judge, the greatest hitter in baseball right now, one of the greatest home run hitters ever. Aaron Judge is not on the Supreme Court, even though his last name is Judge. He's not on the Supreme Court. Oh. And Michael Brown, I am Caucasian, even though my last name is Brown. Michael Brown, I am Caucasian, even though my last name is Brown. Michael Brown, I am Caucasian.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian. Well, joining us for our weekly segment, Bottom Line, is Allgemeiner CEO Dovid Efune. So, Dovid, let's jump right in. Genetically speaking, are Jews white?
Well, Natasha, it's important to understand, firstly, the intense sensitivity that this question has for the Jewish community. And actually, it's coming up at a personally very relevant time for me. Today is the anniversary of the passing of my great-grandfather, David Weinstock, who was arrested by the Nazis in Vienna in September 1939. And he was taken to the anthropological department at the Vienna Museum of Natural History, and he was subjected to, together with 440 other Jews, to degrading tests and measurements because he was considered by the Nazis to be of an inferior race. So it really is the height of irony and insult that when Jews express concern about anti-Semitism being ignored and a blindness to anti-Semitism, they're then lumped into the white category.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian.
Genetically speaking, are Jews white?
I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So, a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now immigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken, okay? It's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin, just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin,
just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. Sometimes part of the problem between the two communities is that some people will take advantage of that.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, how old are you saying?
No, we don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews? Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews?
I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. Sometimes part of the problem between the two communities is that some people will take advantage of that, will use their whiteness as a way of promoting themselves, as a way of integrating themselves into whatever community they want to be in by removing themselves and denigrating themselves from some other community. Right. I find that problematic.
I'm white. I'm white. Unseasoned. A Caucasian.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian.
I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. Sometimes part of the problem between the two communities is that some people will take advantage of that.
So he gets the benefits of being Shemitic, but then also a descendant of Japheth. So he gets the benefits of being from a group, because Semites, or if we want to be real with it, it is a group from a subgroup from Afro-Asiatic. So they get the benefit of what? Being Afro-Asiatic, but then being Caucasian white at the same time. Now, so we got a problem. And we keep endorsing the delusion.
You will not influence me. I am my own person. I am a strong black woman.
So first, Catholics, Christians were not going missing all over Europe and their bodies were found and traced back to Jews. That is the blood libel. It is a lie. It is an anti-Semitic lie. Documented, proven lie.
One man was missing. And the first thing what came to the Gentile mind was, it was the time before Passover, that the Jews had killed that man and they used the blood for matzahs. And they came to the bakeries, they started searching for the blood. But naturally, this was a lie and this was absurd. One person who witnessed the whole thing could not live with themselves. And they came forward to the police and they told the story that they heard screaming that night. And she told them, and she called them to the place where the person was killed and they buried him alive. You could imagine what would have happened with the rest of the Jews in the city if they would not find that man.
But according to her, Zionists defend pedophiles and criminals. She says, this is later on in her rant, pedophiles from America are allowed by Israel to flee and receive protection from their state. And Israel is not our ally. Israel is not our friend. Israel is our enemy. So, I mean, it is unbelievably perverse, sick stuff.
A CBS News investigation has uncovered a loophole that allows accused and convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel. So Ian Lee has been following this for more than a year, and he traveled to Israel for this investigation. He worked with a group that tracks people accused of sex crimes, which estimates dozens of Americans have used this loophole.
So, you know, he's 6'2".
We are on a stakeout looking for this man, Jimmy Julius Caro, 48 years old and wanted on charges of sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl in Oregon back in 2000 and a 5-year-old girl in Israel in 2001. He's considered dangerous. But these photos are a few years old, so we don't know if he'll look the same. He remains elusive. Previous attempts to capture him have failed.
Obviously, the fear that he would somehow figure out that anyone's looking for him and bolt. He just called his number.
Shauna Aronson got a tip that Caro's expected at this clinic near Tel Aviv.
Who's going to call the
She's with JCW, Jewish Community Watch, an organization that hunts down accused pedophiles who flee to Israel from the U.S., exploiting a process called Law of Return, whereby any Jewish person can move to Israel and automatically gain citizenship. The ease with which pedophiles seem able to use this law as an escape route haunts victims like Mendy Hoff, who says he was abused from age 8 by a teacher at an Orthodox Jewish school in Los Angeles.
So your classroom is right here. How does it feel being back?
I was very anxious and, stressed coming back here, and a lot of memories coming through my mind.
Memories of his alleged abuser, Mordechai Yom Tov, who taught him Hebrew studies when he was just 8 years old.
So in the beginning, he would just rub me outside of my pants, and then I would say about 3 to 4 months later, he started going in.
Reaching down your pants?
Yeah, it's reaching down.
Why did you feel like you couldn't tell anyone?
I was scared, I was ashamed. I just didn't know what people would think of me, of the whole situation.
Yom Tov pled guilty in 2002 to sexually abusing and committing lewd acts against 3 other boys. He served jail time, but when he was released, he violated his probation and, according to JCW, fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community. JCW tracked Yom Tov down and confronted him with a hidden camera in Jerusalem, where he admitted to illegally fleeing the United States with help and using a fake passport to enter Israel.
I was supposed to stay for 5 years in the same city.
as opposed to jumping on the side of your sofa. It's supposed to be every 2 weeks to the police station. On parole. I left within a week later.
He had this message for his victims.
I'm very, 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 very sorry.
The other person in this video is Meir Seewald, the founder of Jewish Community Watch. He tells CBS News Yom Tov's case isn't uncommon in the Orthodox community.
The same thing that's going on in the Catholic Church right now around the world, the exact same thing happens in our community. The rabbis say it's, you know what, he promised he's going to go for therapy, he's never going to do it again. Boom, he's in another community. A few years later, he's at the same thing, and we hear more allegations that the person continued to abuse children.
And often, those abusers end up in Israel.
But according to her, Zionists defend pedophiles and criminals. She says, this is later on in her rant, pedophiles from America are allowed by Israel to flee and receive protection from their state. And Israel is not our ally. Israel is not our friend. Israel is our enemy. So, I mean, it is unbelievably perverse, sick stuff.
As a child, my next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism. She says her family has been involved in rituals for generations. She is currently in extensive therapy, suffers from multiple personality disorder, meaning she's blocked out many of the terrifying and painful memories of her childhood. Meet Rachel, who is also in disguise to protect her identity. My next guest treats ritually abused children in her therapist practice. She feels that the problem is much more widespread than any of us can imagine. Says there's no doubt in her mind that children and adults that she treats are telling the truth. Tina Grossman, we're glad to have all of you join us here on the show. You come from generations of ritualistic abuse?
Yes, my family has an extensive family tree, and they keep track of who's been involved and who hasn't been involved. And it's gone back to like 1700.
And so you were
right.
abused.
I was born into a family that believes in this.
And this is does everyone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl.
Definitely.
And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home?
Right. There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my own family.
Really? And so who knows about it? Lots of people now.
I talked to a police detective in the Chicago area, and several of my friends know, and I've spoke publicly before. And
so when you were brought up in this kind of evilness, did you just think it was normal?
I blacked out a lot of the memories I had because of my multiple personality disorder. But yes, I mean, it's like if you grow up with something, you think it's normal. Mm-hmm. I always thought. So what
kinds of things? You don't have to give us the gory details, but what kinds of things went on in the family?
Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed, and you would have to, you know.
Whose babies?
There were people who bred babies in our family. No one would know about it. A lot of people were overweight, so you couldn't tell if they were pregnant or not, or they would supposedly go away for a while and then come back.
Now, you were telling us earlier that this was that the practice with the Kilroy death was a religion called
Palamayombe, which not all people who practice Palamayombe obviously sacrifice. I think what we're looking at is a worship of evil here.
Right.
Taking normal or standard religions and perverting them to the worship of evil.
Right. And I just want to emphasize that you don't have to be Caribbean to do it.
No.
Yes.
The other thing I want to point out, not all Jewish people sacrifice babies. I mean, that's not a very typical thing. I just want to point that out.
This is the first time I heard of any Jewish people sacrificing babies.
But according to her, Zionists defend pedophiles and criminals. She says, this is later on in her rant, pedophiles from America are allowed by Israel to flee and receive protection from their state. And Israel is not our ally. Israel is not our friend. Israel is our enemy. So, I mean, it is unbelievably perverse, sick stuff.
Let's see what's inside the Talmud that contradicts Torah. What does the Talmud say about pedophilia? In the case of a male child, a young one is not regarded as on a par with an old one, but a young beast is treated as an old one. What is meant by this? Rob said, Pederasty with a child below 9 years of age is not deemed as pederasty with a child above that. Samuel said pederasty with a child below 3 years is not treated as with a child above that. What is the basis of their dispute? Rob maintains that only he who is able to engage in sexual intercourse may, as the passive object of pederasty, throw guilt upon the active offender, whilst he who is unable to engage in sexual intercourse cannot be a passive subject. But let's go to the footnote to better explain what I just read. This is the footnote 54b. The reference is to the passive subject of sodomy. As stated, Super 54a, guilt is incurred by the active participant even if the former be a minor. An example, less than 13 years old. Now, however, it is stated that within this age, a distinction is drawn. So what is the age of distinction? Footnote 24. It says, Rob makes 9 years the minimum, but if one committed sodomy with a child of a lesser age, no guilt is incurred. Samuel makes 3 the minimum. You see what it's saying here? One rabbi says 9 years is the minimum, but another one says, but if one committed sodomy with a child of a lesser age, no guilt is incurred. But another rabbi says 3 is the minimum. And then when we look at 25, at 9 years, a male attains sexual matureness. 26. The point of comparison is the sexual matureness of woman, which is reached at the age of 3. Wait a minute. Sexual matureness of a woman is at the age of 3. According to their Talmud, an adult man and woman are allowed to have sexual intercourse with kids. Ketubah 11b, a small boy who has intercourse with a grown-up woman makes her as though she were injured by a piece of wood. When I said it before Samuel, he said injured by a piece of wood does not apply to flesh. Some teach this teaching itself as to a small boy who has intercourse with a grown-up woman. When a grown-up man has had intercourse with a little girl, or when a small boy has intercourse with a grown-up woman, or when a girl was accidentally injured by a piece of wood, in all these cases, that's how they treat it. Like she has a splinter. If she has intercourse with a little boy, I'm not even gonna say intercourse, molesting a child, a little boy, they say they're gonna treat it like she has a splinter. It means this: when a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing. For when the girl is less than this, it is as if one puts the finger into the eye. In other words, accidentally poked yourself in the eye. So it's no big deal. But when a small boy has intercourse with a grown-up woman, he makes her as a girl, reduces her to a girl who is injured by a piece of wood. In other words, a girl having a splinter in her hand. Let's see the footnotes. It says, footnote number 1, although the intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act. Wait a minute. It's perversion. Although intercourse, no, it's raping, not just no intercourse. It's a raping, it's molesting. Although the intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act, nevertheless, the woman is injured by it as by a piece of wood. 6, you see less than 3 years old. We go to 7, an example, tears come to the eye again and again. So does virginity. In other words, it'll come back, she'll grow out of it. So does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years old. Stuff is sick. This is sick. Was Leo Frank innocent? See, a number of witnesses testified against Leo Frank's wandering hands. An alarming number of witnesses would claim that Leo Frank had a problem with harassing young women at the workplace. Some advocates of Frank's innocence have argued that this testimony was largely tittle-tattle, exaggerated statements designed to portray Frank as a pervert capable of murdering a teenage girl who spurned his advances. In 1913, Atlanta, as with the rest of the South, Jews were a relatively well-integrated and accepted part of the community. The Jewish community were regarded as part of the white population.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian.
I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. Sometimes part of the problem between the two communities is that some people will take advantage of that.
the Jewish community were regarded as part of the white population. Anti-Semitism was rare in Atlanta. In this context, it does not seem very likely that so many white Atlantans would be willing to commit perjury to see a fellow white man go to the gallows instead of any of the several black suspects that were also arrested by the police. See, Negroes, on the other hand, we were treated as third-class citizens. Negroes were stripped of many civic and legal rights, segregation, vilified, and often subjected to brutal violence and oppression. Most of the thousands of lynchings that occurred in this period were of black men, often killed if there was even a suspicion that they had attempted to engage in relations with a white woman. See, Leo Frank's defense team did not even attempt to cross-examine any of the teenage girls that testified at the trial that Leo Frank had made sexual advances to them. Here's another key point about the trial of Leo Frank. This is coming from the Leo Frank Case Research Library. It says, after questioning witnesses, carefully reviewing and meticulously deliberating over inquest testimony and grand jury evidence, a grand jury of 21 men, including 4 Jewish members, indicted Leo M. Frank unanimously, 21-0, on Saturday, May 24th, 1913, exactly 4 weeks after Mary Fagan was murdered. The Frankite smearmongers like Dinnerstein and Alfin are essentially making anti-Jewish blood libel smears against one of the most progressive and greatest statesmen of 20th century Georgian history, and claiming Hugh Dorsey was anti-Semite. And so twisted as a racist, he would rather see an innocent white Jew convicted for a crime he did not commit than a guilty African-American pedophile, rapist, murder.
What about Leo Frank? But Leo Frank killed Mary Fagan during Passover 1913. First, Leo Frank, his last name was Frank, had no more to do with Frankus than that he was a living Frankfurter. Come on. That guy's last name was Frank. It's a common last name. Here, how can I be alive today when I was killed by cops in Ferguson, Missouri? Michael Brown was killed. Oh, there are lots of Michael Browns out there. His name is Leo Frank. There's no connection between Leo Frank and Frankus. The Frankus didn't exist. The Frankus has no connection to America. Plus, a great majority of legal scholars believe that Leo Frank was framed, that he didn't commit any murder, that they know who did commit the murder. They're aware of who committed the murder.
There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the usage of the N-word in this movie.
No, nobody, none. The word would be...
Oh, I don't want to say it.
Why not?
I don't like to say it.
Have you ever said it?
No, sir.
Try it.
I don't like to say it.
Try it.
Really? Seriously?
We're not going to have this conversation unless you say it. You want to move on to another question?
Okay. Awesome. I don't want to say it.
Come on.
Will you say it?
No, that's not the same thing.
Why do you want me to say it?
They're going to bleep it when you say it on your show. Say it.
He would rather see an innocent white Jew convicted for a crime he did not commit than a guilty African-American pedophile, rapist, murder die at the gallows for the bludgeoning rape and strangulation of Mary Fagan. Here's another interesting fact about this whole situation. Mary Fagan was murdered on April 26, 1913. That year, Passover began on Monday, April 21st, Feast of the Unleavened Bread on April 22nd, and ended on Monday, April 28th. Is it simply a coincidence that this murder occurred during the Passover? Does it give validity to the blood libel accusations in which it's believed that matzah bread was made from children's blood during the Passover? After all, she was only 13 years old. What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.